So if you suspect you've got a faulty starter motor, it's always good practice to start off with checking the battery voltage. So for a fully charged battery, you'd expect 12.6 volts, but you'd want a minimum of 12.4 volts. From there, you can then conduct a volt drop test on the battery by starting the ignition, and you wouldn't want to see that go below 9.6 volts. Now, depending on the location of your starter motor, you may need to get underneath to access it. Obviously, if it's not working, you won't be able to drive it up ramps like I've done here, but you'll have to jack it up. So the next stage is to remove the under tray. So without going into too much detail on how it works, there's three connections that we're going to test, two positive and the negative, a thicker positive connection which supplies the motor, a thinner gauge positive one that supplies the solenoid, and then the earth connection which is through the housing and the engine block back to battery negative. So that's what we're on there, the main positive connection, and if you go to battery negative you should get battery voltage. So now we're going to test the condition of that main positive connection to the starter motor. We're going to take our lead off of battery negative, put it on battery positive, and then we're going to crank the engine, turn the starter motor over, and we wouldn't want to see any more than 0.5 volts. So we know now that the main positive connection to the starter motor is good. What we can do now is take the connection off of that main positive connection and touch it to the casing of the starter motor. Our other connection is on battery positive, and we should therefore get battery voltage, showing we've got a connection there. So we can now test the integrity of that ground connection. So I've just got it attached there to one of the bolts. So what you can do now is take that connection back off positive and put it back on battery negative, and so we're attached to battery negative and the casing of the starter motor, and we're going to crank the engine again, and on a negative connection you don't want to see any more than 0.2 volts. So the last positive wire, the thinner gauge positive wire, is the ignition feed. So when you turn the ignition, that is what supplies the solenoid with voltage. So you would do the same there, back probe it, and then connect that to battery positive, and you wouldn't want to see any more than 0.5 volts on a positive line. I couldn't actually back probe it because the probe wouldn't go far enough into that connection. So what we're going to do, we're just going to use the amp clamp instead. So I've got the amp clamp on a 10 millivolt per amp setting, so you can see there it's drawing about 5 amps.